Hello, welcome to FightCore USA.
What do you do when two warriors collide in the heat of battle? If it's a UFC event, then the answer is obvious. Stop the fight and bring out the medics. But who exactly are these people that have the power to end fights at the drop of a hat? Why are they there? What do they look for to decide if a fighter should be stopped? And how much say do they actually have? Welcome to my channel. It's time to meet the cage side physician. Now, the first thing you need to understand about the cage side physician is that they always have the final say. The fighters, the coaches, the refs, and even the commentators, none of them can overrule the cage side physician. Now, this doesn't mean they don't listen to what they have to say, because they do. But when it comes down to it, the cage side physician always has the final say. But why? Why do they have so much power? Well, simply put, it's because they are there for the safety of their fighter. If a fighter gets injured or is unable to continue due to fatigue or some other factor, the cage side physician is responsible for stopping the fight and ensuring the athlete gets the medical attention they need. Of course, the referee is also responsible for looking after the health and safety of the athletes. However, the referee's role is to manage the action within the rules of the sport. This includes making sure the fighters follow the rules, protecting the fighters from each other, and disqualifying a fighter if they break the rules. Basically, the referee ensures the integrity of the contest, which includes the health and safety of the fighters. However, they cannot act independently of the cage side physician. In fact, the referee is instructed to defer to the cage side physician on any matters related to the health and safety of the fighters. But with great power comes great responsibility. So what exactly are they looking for when they're watching a fight? What makes them step in and stop a contest? Well, in a nutshell, they are looking for three things. One, a deep cut. Two, a broken bone. Three, signs of a severe concussion. Of course, there are other less obvious things they are looking for too. For example, they might stop a fight if they think a fighter is completely exhausted and unable to defend themselves. However, these three things are the most common reasons for a cage side physician to stop a fight. Let's start with cuts. Cuts are a common occurrence in MMA after all. The fighters are essentially trying to cut each other up as efficiently as possible. However, there is a limit to how much cutting a fighter can take before the cage side physician intervenes. The main concern with cuts is that they can become infected. If bacteria enters the wound, it can lead to an infection that could potentially be life. The cage side physician is looking for cuts that are deep enough that they could potentially become infected. If they see a cut that looks like it could be a problem, they will stop the fight and have the fighter treated by the medical team. Broken bones are another matter entirely. If a fighter breaks a bone during a fight, it is immediately obvious the fighter will likely be in a lot of pain and will be unable to continue fighting. In addition, a broken bone can lead to permanent damage if it is not treated properly. Therefore, it is in the best interest of the fighter to stop the fight immediately if they break a bone. And the cage side physician is there to ensure that this happens. Perhaps the most controversial of these three things is a sign of a severe concussion. A concussion is a brain injury that can cause a loss of consciousness or a change in mental state. In order for a cage-side physician to stop a fight because of a concussion, the fighter must show clear signs of having sustained a blow to the head that caused a change in their mental state. This is not easy to spot, especially in the earlier stages. However, the cage-side physician is trained to look for certain signs that indicate a fighter has sustained a concussion. These signs include a change in the fighter's behavior, such as becoming confused or disoriented, as well as physical symptoms such as a loss of balance or coordination. It's important to remember that these are just guidelines and every situation is different. For example, if a fighter has a small cut that is not bleeding heavily, the cage-side physician may allow the fight to continue. On the other hand, if a fighter has a large cut that is bleeding profusely, the physician may stop the fight immediately. The same is true for broken bones and concussions. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to stop a fight is up to the cage-side physician, and they have the authority to do so if they believe that a fighter's health and safety is at risk. However, sometimes they make unpopular decisions. Sometimes these decisions are not what the fans want to hear, like when they stop a fight in the championship rounds. But that's okay because they don't make these decisions lightly. In fact, they usually have no choice when it comes to making these decisions. They are made based on what they see with their own eyes, and if they see something that indicates a fighter is in danger, they must act accordingly. For example, there was a fight between two UFC champions in the early days of the organization. One champion was a striker, and the other was a grappler. The striker was winning the fight easily, until the grappler took him down and started pounding away at him. The striker was clearly in trouble, but he was still conscious and fighting back. However, the cage-side physician saw that the striker was taking a lot of damage and was starting to show signs of a concussion. Even though the striker was still conscious and fighting back, the cage-side physician stopped the fight. This was a controversial decision because the fans wanted to see the fight continue. However, the cage-side physician made the right call. If he had not stopped the fight when he did, the striker could have suffered a serious brain injury. Another example was a fight between two top contenders. The fight was going back and forth until one of the contenders landed a knee that knocked the other one out cold. The fans went wild. But the cage-side physician was not impressed. He saw that the knee had caused a concussion and stopped the fight immediately. Again, this was a controversial decision because the fans wanted to see the fight continue. But the cage-side physician made the right call. Wow. These are just two examples of times when the cage-side physician made unpopular but necessary decisions. They don't do this to be controversial. They do it to protect the fighters. And finally, they protect fighters from their own incredible courage. Have you ever seen a fighter continue to fight after they were clearly hurt? It's amazing to see the human body in action like this, but it's also dangerous. When a fighter is hurt, they are more likely to make mistakes that could further injure themselves. That's why the cage-side physician is there to protect the fighters from themselves. For example, there was a fight between two fighters. The fight was going back and forth until one of the fighters landed a punch that knocked the other one down. The fighter who was knocked down was in trouble, but he was still conscious and trying to get back up. However, The cage-side physician saw that the fighter was clearly hurt and was not able to defend himself. The physician stopped the fight, and the fighter was taken away on a stretcher. In this case, the cage-side physician saved the fighter from further injury. Overall, the cage-side physician is an unsung hero of MMA. They work behind the scenes to ensure the fighters are safe, even if it means making unpopular decisions. Next time you watch an MMA fight, take a moment to appreciate the hard work and dedication of the cage-side physician. They may not be fighters themselves, but they play an essential role in the sport. Without them, MMA would not be the exciting and dynamic sport that it is today. So, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. Until next time, remember to be safe and take care of yourself.
Okay guys, thank you for watching my videos.